Okay, so in this slide here, we're going to talk about radio, and this is by Mervyn C, the cat's Whisker, official voice of the Canadian Vintage Wireless Association, Volume 3, Number 1, March 1973. Okay, so yes, it was a Canadian, Reginald R.B. Fessenden, who was recognized as the father of radio and as the first to actually transmit the sound of the human voice without wires. So the first radio broadcast ever in the world's history was made by Fessenden on Christmas Eve, 1906, when he beamed a Christmas concert to the astonished crews of the ships of the United Fruit Company out in the Atlantic Ocean and the Caribbean Sea. Beamed out of a 400-foot tower of the transmitting shack at Brant Rock, Massachusetts, on the Atlantic coast, this program commenced at 9 o'clock with CQ, 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 meaning general call to all stations within range, sent out in Morse code. So this broadcasting area was actually about 8 miles from my home here in Marshfield, Massachusetts. Over the microphone, Reginald himself gave a brief speech as to the program to follow. This was immediately followed by one of the operators switching on the Edison phonograph and a solo voice singing Handel Largo. Fessenden grabbed his violin and fiddled through O Holy Night, singing as well as playing. Helen, his wife, and his secretary, Miss Bent, endeavored to read parts of the Bible. Concluding the program, Fessenden wished his listeners a Merry Christmas. From the album by Josh Ritter. Prior to the emergence of television as dominant entertainment medium in the 50s, families gathered to listen to the home radio in the evening. The golden age of radio, also known as the old-time radio era, was an era of radio in the United States where it was the dominant electronic home entertainment medium. It began with the birth of commercial radio broadcasting in the early 1920s and lasted through the 1950s, when television gradually superseded radio as the medium of choice for scripted programming, variety, and dramatic shows. Radio was the first broadcast medium, and during this period, people regularly tuned into their favorite radio programs, and families gathered to listen to the home radio in the evening. According to a 1947 C.E. Hooper survey, 82 out of 100 Americans were found to be radio listeners. A variety of new entertainment formats and genres were created for this new medium, many of which later migrated to television. Radio plays, mystery series, soap operas, quiz shows, talent shows, daytime and evening variety hours, situation comedies, play-by-play sports, children's shows, cooking shows, and more. 82% of American homes would own a radio by 1940. During the 1950s, automobile manufacturers began offering car radios as a standard accessory. And radio received a boost as Americans listened to stations as they drove to and from work. And that still happens today. People, especially with long commutes from the suburbs into the city, usually listen to the radio for updates of the traffic report, maybe taking alternative routes depending on how bad the traffic is that day. A new format, all news radio, became popular on the AM band in major cities in the late 1960s. Talk radio, although it had a small following in the cities, did not achieve mainstream popularity until the 1980s. Internet radio, digital music players, and streaming capable smartphones are a challenge to traditional terrestrial AM and FM radio today. Okay, so it all starts back. The radios back in those early 1920s were a great big, huge wooden box, lots of tubes. Eventually, we get the transistor radio. People would take that to the beach, to picnics. Car radios, as we talked about, that eventually gets developed into CD players, and now it's you don't even need it. You can get it all on the internet. Okay, so that's a little bit about where radio began and how it ended up today.